Welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's another YouTube video. And if you like these, why not subscribe? This is a match preview of Leeds versus Everton on Wednesday night. And if you've got an idea of what the score would be, leave it in the comments. Why not? Here we go. The following podcast contains some strong language and some very average opinions. Any references to actual people are wildly inaccurate. It's probably best if you don't listen at all. The Roaring Peacock Podcast. Welcome back to the Roaring Peacock Podcast. This is the match preview between Leeds United and Everton on Wednesday night. And my name's Adonis, and you know me as the Adelites on Twitter. It's a very good hello from me. And joining us for the Roaring Peacock is Barney.
Hi, mate. You all right?
Yeah, I'm very good,
Hello.
thanks. I'm very good, thank you. And the stranger in our midst, a toffee in Peacock's clothing, BBC Radio Leeds presenter and proud Evertonian, Adam Pope.
Hi, guys.
Hello. So, Popey, only one place to start. That game at the King Power Stadium last night.
Which I honestly believe tops the performance at Goodison Park, which I had as the best Leeds United performance of the season in the Premier League, even better than the Villa one, although Bielsa will disagree. I just thought what we saw at Leicester was fantastic. There was a maturity about the performance and the fact that they saw it out really well with the third goal and managed the game well. They overcame a difficult obstacle in the way Leicester shaped up for the second half. And the fact they overcame a very difficult opponent who had been really good in midweek at Everton in a 1-1 draw. And great goals and just so many good individual performances. The collective thing was fantastic in every department. Honestly, I thought it was brilliant. A real game and performance to remember and savour.
Okay, but for Everton, it wasn't such a fantastic last game. So Ancelotti said they lacked spirit and were lazy as they went down 2-0 to Newcastle. So how was that for you, Popey? Probably the polar opposite of the Leicester-Leeds game.
Yeah, Leeds rescued the weekend. I mean, honestly, Everton stank the gaff out on Saturday lunchtime. They were awful. Newcastle have done the double now over Everton, and of course Leeds have done the double over Newcastle. And I think, although Newcastle had shown signs in that second half against Leeds that they were putting something together, I'm not quite sure what, but whether it was just Sam Maximin or whatever, but they showed a spirit and a togetherness that they hadn't showed in the previous half. To be fair, I think Ancelotti's right. Everton were lazy. It's like literally Newcastle wanted that bit more, which I hate saying that when it's two professional clubs going head to head. But Callum Wilson should have had a hat-trick. And I've got to be honest, Everton didn't offer anything in response, to be quite frank. So it was a really dispiriting performance. And you've got to be honest, for all the great run, the two big runs that Everton have had this year, a result like that absolutely kills any hope if you're getting top four. So for me, they are hopefully a cup this year, but a top six finish is doable. But stuff like that just makes you wonder whether they're just going to fall a little bit short.
It's strange one, isn't it? Because when we talked before the Everton Leeds game earlier in the season in November, we were looking at Everton as being maybe even a title contender, or just because there've been so many wacky results this season, and it seems to have all dropped off a little bit. Can you tell us what's gone wrong?
Yeah, I think with Everton, you've got a really strong 11. And I think with the signings that came in, and they've missed Allen, and they definitely missed Allen through his injury in the last game against Newcastle. James is a brilliant player. And as we saw with the goal the other night against Leicester, I mean, he's just got that quality that can change a game. And I do compare him to Rodrigo. I think he's further down the line in the Premier League than Rodrigo is in terms of the effect that he's having at Everton, comparatively speaking. So, there's two players that are absolutely key to it. Godfrey's been superb, but the big thing, I think the chances, and when they have come, have dried up somewhat, but also Calvert-Lewin is just shown that there's no backup to him, and Cenk Tosun's gone out. Not that he was ever going to be good enough to back him up, but he's now gone back, to Turkey, if you like. So there's no real backup there, and I think there's a similarity, if you like, with Leeds in the sense that who else is going to smash the goals in? If DCL isn't going to do that, Richarlison should be capable of doing it. He's brilliant. But do you know what I've noticed with Everton and certain players? I watch. We have an internal stream here that Match the Day takes, so we've been watching the games because we've been restricted from travelling to away games on this special stream that has no commentary on it. So you just hear the coach effects and the player effects, if you like. And what I noticed there was the amount of babysitting they do for Richarlison all through the game. Come on, Richie, keep going. And it's like having to keep a kid focused the whole time. And I think there's an element of that when he's not on it as well, Everton really suffers. So there's a few elements, if you like. Pickford making a mistake the other day, not great. Again, I thought he might have been dropped for Newcastle. So there's little things here and there that are just stopping Everton from being a real force just at the moment. But I have to say, from a prediction, I think they're on track and he's got them going in the right direction. He's a card-carrying, top-class, world-class manager. And he's getting stuff out of the side that I didn't expect. But we're probably another transfer window away from being serious contenders.
Okay, so Barney, just quickly then, what are your thoughts been on Everton? Have they impressed you this year?
They've impressed me in parts, but I think there's a lot of individuals there that don't play as a team in some games. I think it's obviously still a building process with them. The amount of money the owners invested in the team and also with the new stadium as well. And I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were saying that Everton's revenue is in the top 20 of Europe now. So I think that what the owner's doing there is fantastic. But I think to break into the top four so quickly is a big ask.
I don't think other podcasts exist, Barney. Back when Leeds still had to have 20 shots to score one goal, we had what I considered our best performance of the season, as you did, Perpy, before last night. So let's talk about that game then at Goodison Park. We talked beforehand about your crossed allegiances in your heart, and we were kind of speculating as to how it might be. But how was it?
I think in the sense that it was an Everton defeat, it was because it was so deserved. I think there was a lot of joy to be had, obviously, for me to see Leeds do so well and putting in such a great performance and a great goal as well. But the performance was brilliant. I think it would have been harder if it had been a difficult defeat to swallow in the sense that it wasn't deserved. But honestly, I genuinely thought Leeds were that good that day. So, and also, you've not got the crowd around you. You've not got family nearby, you're not going to see them afterwards and stuff. So it changed the whole sort of feeling of it. So it was a really proud moment to do it. And I gave the program and the team sheet to my brother, who was a massive blue. And I know essentially it's a defeat and one that they want to forget, but it's just a shame personally that the day wasn't how I always envisaged it to be. Not least in the result for Everton too, but honestly, professionally and from a Leeds point of view, I just thought it was just such a great performance. And I really thought there's been a few sort of announcements this season, like, Jack Harrison's goal at Liverpool, which was worthy of winning the game. That I thought great. Straight at the beginning of the Premier League season, that's a great start. But the Everton game was a real mark in the sand as well. Villa was extraordinarily good. But I just felt the Leicester game is the one that says, wow, Leeds are a force to be reckoned with in the Premier League now and for next season. Do not treat them lightly at your peril. And I just felt there was elements of that in the Everton game as well. That's how good it was.
I imagine you were hoping for a 3-3 draw, something like that, end to end, and very exciting and something for everybody.
Yeah, I think I had so many people get in touch saying, "Oh, how are you going to be? Should you be doing this game?" All that sort of stuff. It was never going to be an issue for me, really, honestly. It just wasn't. It doesn't say it doesn't enter your head, because it does, because people mention it, but it was never going to be an issue. I think I prepared myself mentally for it, a year in advance, or maybe 2 years until the Derby game. So it wasn't going to be an issue for me, but I just wanted to do it as well as I could. And I think because Leeds was so good and pretty much dominant and so deserving to win, it made my job as the BBC Radio Leeds commentator that bit easier.
I don't know about how you felt the game went, Barney, but for me, it was like one of those games where I didn't think there was going to be a goal. Especially for Leeds. Harrison was especially unlucky with the narrow shot wide that Raphinha had played him in. He hit the post off a header, and there was a shot blocked off the line. And Meslier was looking like he wasn't going to get beaten at the other end. What were your thoughts on that Everton game?
I thought, obviously, I'm going to have to mention Phillips. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic in that game. I think the Premier League stood up and realised how good a midfielder he was. We've been used to those sort of games, haven't we, in the Championship under Bielsa, where we've just dominated teams, and the amount of chances we've had, but it's always come. And I think the difference was that because Raphinha came on, didn't he? I think that was the difference when we had when we had class on the bench that could make the difference there.
I'm amazed you can remember so much of the game, So I can literally remember Raphinha making a sort of interception and darting away from the edge of the penalty area, which was, I thought, wow, this guy's something. I think he's been different gravy since we first set eyes on him, but his goal was sensational that day. I think it sort of megged on the way through, didn't it? But I mean, he meant every ounce of it. It was brilliant. So yeah, but I'm amazed. I mean, you reminded me of stuff now I've forgotten. Harrison hitting the post, and I think there was another great chance from when you think about it. I just thought they was just so worthy winners on the day, and I think Everton were the sort of talk of the town, really, weren't they, at the time as well? It's like, our Leeds going to cope with this, and Everton never got in their stride, and I know they had a few personnel issues on the day too, but Leeds totally took advantage of them, and worthy winners. They really were.
Yeah, we've seemed to hit a few clubs when they were sort of flying and on form and at the top of the league. We did that with Spurs. I think we did it with Chelsea as well, and Leicester obviously last night, and Everton as well. And I thought Everton and Leicester were the exception because we were well beaten. Chelsea and Spurs, and I'm not really sure why.
Yeah,
I think with Ancelotti, he's very much like a Bielsa. He likes to play football, he likes to attack, and that's when it opens up for us. I think when we were playing Spurs, obviously it was very Mourinho wanting to hit us on the break. Same with Leicester as well. Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about Raphinha as well, and I grew up watching, Ronaldinho, and the first World Cup I can remember was 1994 with Romario, and of course England were in it, so I was kind of supporting Brazil as every little kid does. And so to now have a Brazilian winger causing all sorts of chaos for in a white shirt, and probably similar for you as well with Richarlison.
Yeah, I think the great thing, firstly, from Raphinha's point of view, I think where he's different to me than the other wingers at the club, and most of he loves to get in centrally, and as we saw, can play almost that number 10 role too. I mean, that pass was everything Hernandez can do. The one that set up Bamford and what have you. And this is what I like about it. There's an unpredictability about him, and I think the term that Bielsa uses, that unbalance in the game, isn't it? That's exactly what he does, but he does things at such pace with such thought, and his execution is nearly unerring every time. It's brilliant, and also he does the dirty stuff. I mean, how many times you see him back in the final third, which is great. And when you compare him to some of the other, like Richarlison, say, not quite sure he does that the same way for Everton. Nor an Iwobi, who's playing sort of right wing back stroke winger, if you like, for Everton. I think there's a difficulty, whereas Leeds, it's drilled into them from the start, and I think that's where he is the complete Bielsa player, isn't he? He's a beautiful winger. He's got all the tricks, the skills. He's got goals in him as well, but he does everything that's needed for the team, and he must be frightening to play against. He must be. He's and the swiftness at which he's adapted to Premier League life and Bielsa life. You can't underestimate that. He hasn't had the pre-season that everybody else has had, or a lot of the players have had. and he's kept up to pace, and he's kept everybody else down. He's the first winger now. He's the best winger. Harrison's been brilliant the way he's evolved, but those two are leaving everybody else behind, and Raphinha's the pick of the bunch.
Yeah. The thing that I love about Raphinha is the flames in his eyes. He wants it. He wants it. So he's so hungry every time to get goals, to get the ball. He doesn't shy away. He doesn't get lost in games. You don't need to carry him. He's the one who's making it happen, and he certainly did that at Goodison Park. So let's move on now to Wednesday night and have a look at that. Now, if you thought there wasn't enough disclaimers at the start of every one of these Roaring Peacock podcasts, then we're going to have to add another one because we're recording this on deadline day. So we don't know about injuries or even new signings.
Well, I can say, there's no expectation of new signing. Don't go to bed just yet. Yeah. Look, I genuinely don't think. I think I'd be amazed if there's a new signing of any note that comes in. Bielsa said after the game, he said, "I'm not expecting any ins or out." I think any outs will be the likes of J. Roy Grotz, coming back from injury and going on another loan somewhere. I think Rafa Majika's been linked with another move, hasn't he? He's already out on loan. People that just aren't part of the plans at all. I mean, a lot of talk about Ollie Casey being linked with the MK Dons. Richard Keogh went from there to Huddersfield Town recently. They're wanting a permanent signing. So will they be up for paying whatever percentage of Premier League wages? And will they give them the game time that Leeds will demand as well? So I think that's right in the balance. Connor Shotness is another one who's not featured at all, really, other than one, I think, cup game under Bielsa. As I understand it, there's not been that much interest, maybe a bit, but there's a deal to be done there to either get him out of the club or move him on somewhere. But I think that's the level you're talking at. I'd be amazed if there was some sensational signing today, in or out, to be quite honest.
It'd have to be a Raphinha style last minute opportunity, wouldn't it? Barney, do you think that we need to make a signing last minute?
No, I don't, to be honest, because there are players coming back from injury. I mean, the big thing is always the centre-backs pairings. There's a lot of centre-backs, but Berardi's coming back from injury. And maybe, just maybe, we might see Forshaw play again this season. I laugh, but I think if any sort of Premier League side is making a lot of signings in January or a couple of signings, it's starting to look a little bit desperate, and I don't think we're at a point where we are desperate to get any players in.
So do we know anything about injuries? Because Rodrigo went off, and Raphinha, of course, but he had strapping already there. Even Bamford hobbled off, but that's just the dead leg, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that on the latter case, I think Bamford's fine, and he's been speaking on national radio today, and certainly not that it affect his voice in any way, but there was no suggestion that his injury was going to keep him out of Wednesday. He didn't talk about having any issues, but and didn't sound injured, if that makes sense.
Right.
Rodrigo, I think he basically ruled him out more or less, didn't he? After the game, when we spoke to Bielsa, it was weirdly because when he did his groin, Noel Whelan reenacted it on BBC Radio Leeds. Not that anybody could see because it's on radio, but he's sort of in his joggers in our sort of socially distanced room because we're not allowed to travel to the away games at the moment. He sort of did the stretch with his left leg, trailing with his right, showing just how that groin muscle goes. Very painful.
And then,
not a sight I want to remember.
And then, did he do his groin while showing you?
And I had to administer my best Florence Nightingale, right. Of course. Yeah. So I think he's out. Not least he should be out if he ever watches. Noel do that again. It was not a pleasant experience. As for I mean, he was. Yeah, you say he was holding the sort of top front edge of his thigh, wasn't he, as he went off? Look, we'll find out more today, which is no good, obviously, for you on the podcast. But I wonder if they'll give him right to the last minute. You just wonder, don't you, whether, or do they think, hang on, do we leave it alone and wait for the next game, which is obviously on the Monday now, isn't it? And we'll see. But you know, it's like he doesn't take chances, does he, on players? We don't think anyway. So if there's any doubt, he will leave him out, would have thought. But it wasn't cut and dry that he would miss out on Wednesday.
I think Rodrigo would be the one that we wouldn't miss that much, because Clicky came on and he did fantastically. It was back to the old Mateus Click, I thought. So I'm just a bit conscious of time. So we'll move on to just asking you both the one to watch. So one to watch from Everton. Who's that? Who's the player that's going to drag Everton back into form?
So much depends on Rodrigo James. Honestly, I think he makes everything tick. And much as you were talking about Raphinha never shying away from the ball, nor does he. And he's got a beautiful way of opening up play too. So if he ticks, then things will happen. And obviously DCL's got to get back on the score sheet at some point soon. But if it's one player, it's James for me.
Barney?
For me, it's Pickford. I think he's making far too many mistakes for a side that wants to get into the top 6, let alone the top 4. I mean, it's been the discussion for the last couple of seasons with Pickford, where he'll be fantastic in some games, and then in some games he just totally loses his head. And I think if you're a top side, you can't have a goalkeeper like that.
Would you concur, Perpy?
Yeah, he seems to make the errors for Everton as opposed to England, doesn't he? And hence, Southgate sticks with him. But I've got to say, the one the other night against Leicester, I know it's gone through bodies, but he's got to be turning that round the post too. And my worry is that I always describe him as a box of frogs, and he's just too active at times. And I know he's working on it as well, and he's a brilliant shot stopper, and he'll make 3 brilliant stops, but then he'll just let the one that really costs you the points, go. It is definitely a problem, and I agree with you there, Barney. I thought they would have dropped him for the Newcastle game and put Olsen in, to be quite honest. Not that I'm blaming him for any of the goals, but so there's probably no reason why he won't play now on Wednesday. But you're right, he's definitely a weakness, and Everton will not be a top 4 side if that continues. Okay,
so let's have some match predictions. You will receive points for how well you've done. I can't remember what you said last time. I can try and find it in a second. But you get 1 point for predicting a win, draw, or loss. You get 2 extra points for predicting the exact scoreline. You get 1 point for a goal scorer, but to stop you gaming the system and naming every player in both teams, you get -1 for every incorrect goal scorer predicted.
All right, 2-2.
Okay.
Really open game. Bamford and Calvert-Lewin the scorers. Some
safe scorers there. Popey and Barney?
I think it's going to be 2-0 to us. I think Harrison's going to score. And I think Cooper will score from a set piece.
Wow. You really love those minus points there for the goal scorer predictions. No, we've looked good from corners, actually.
Yesterday we looked really good with our set pieces. We looked really dangerous, and Leicester looked like Leeds at set pieces. They couldn't defend them.
I do think it's an area where Leeds have got better in terms of defending them. Bielsa sort of disagreed a little bit the other day, but I think incrementally there's been some small gains lately. We don't seem quite as vulnerable, and I do agree, look a little bit more threatening too. But I think that's coming all around a slightly more aggressive approach to games, and Struik's been, for me, at the core of that.
It was mature, wasn't it, against Leicester? There were times where we made tactical fouls to stop them breaking through the middle, where we had a free kick and we didn't take it quickly. We got some men into the box and crossed it in, which was rather enjoyable. Did Noel like that?
Yeah, he has, because it's something that he's talked about quite a bit, particularly the darker arts, which there's no way they'll be countenanced by the head coach. He'll probably fine them all, isn't he? About 10 weeks' wages for tripping players up and stuff. But yeah, I think seeing more robust challenges, and I don't just mean Cooper putting Perez on his backside at the end, but just seeing people getting close contact at corners And I think there was one where they went for VAR to look at the penalty, didn't they? But basically it was just 50-50, wasn't it? Cooper on his man, sort of a little bit of WWE, but nothing too. You couldn't really give it against one or the other, if you like. And I think that's encouraging. And I think, honestly, Struijk's performance at the back, coming onto the ball so much, makes him stronger. He sees the game in front of him, and I think there's a height and a presence there that's been lacking in it's relative as a small team. And I just think he quite likes to tackle as well, doesn't he? There's a bit of Leeds about Struijk like that. So that, and I just think that's coming to the fore a bit more now. Maybe they are just being a little bit more canny, if you like, when it comes to winning the things that need to be winning at crucial times and slowing the game down when they need to.
I think for me, with the set pieces we've been defending, in the media, it's all about the man-to-man marking. And I think in the set pieces recently, we've actually made it really hard when we're marking our man not to get to the ball. So it's either the odd tug of the shirt or something like that, which makes it really hard. But a question for you, Perpy, do you think Struijk has been given that role like Janssen had, where it was a free role in set pieces, where he would just see where the ball was going to go and he'll head it out?
It's a good point, Barney, actually, because we know that Leeds are very much man-to-man under Bielsa, don't we? So I'd probably have to see that develop over a few games. It's not something that suddenly came to my mind, but he's certainly dominating, isn't he, in a way that I'm not saying quite as clearly as Janssen did. That was definitely his role, wasn't he? He was like the free man, wasn't he, to go and attack stuff. But he seems to be getting on the end of a lot of things, But also, not just that, though, Barney, for me, but it's not just, some of the teams that Leeds were meant to be struggling around with, West Brom, they wouldn't play the ball out like he's done, or intercept and pass at the same time, or put a cute little header into an area where Stuart Vidalis might just get it to go and set up the final goal. There's a lot of thought and intelligence about his plays. There's a bit of craft about them, and we know he's got a pass on him, as we saw. I think it was against Charlton last season, wasn't it, and at Derby in the closing stages of the games of the season there. So. But yeah, he's there to defend for me, and that's his best position. And I think he could be really dominant. Whether he's going to be given a free role, I don't see that under the Bielsa style. It doesn't really fit in. But at the moment, he's certainly staking a claim to it. Although it has been a low bar at this point, hasn't it? As to who gets to first at the corners and what have you. But now he's been great. I'm really pleased with him because he was getting some pelters for his defensive midfield role, wasn't he? That he was filling in for Calvin. So no, this is where he's best, on that left side, on that right side, in fact, yesterday, wasn't it, as opposed to the left side. I just thought he was sensational in every aspect. If anybody was my man of the match, it might have been him actually last night.
If we see him heading bricks at Thorpe Arch, then we know that he's in the right footsteps. Okay, so that's pretty much all we've got time for. I did just want to say, Popey, I totally agree with that VAR decision, and I loved how quick it was. It only took about 5 seconds. They were checking, oh no, nothing in that, get on with it. And the other thing I loved as well, which I know Barney will appreciate, was that Cooper tackle.
Oh,
yeah.
It was like proper back to 1990 football. Get into him. Love it.
It was, wasn't it? And he put him on his backside, which was great. It was all fair. But also, you were talking about like the little things, like there was a couple of yellows that Leeds picked up, wasn't there? But Struijk just left a little bit in on the foot of Perez earlier on, just let him know who's around, stuff like that we don't really see too much of from Leeds players. But yeah, that's evolving, maturing, whatever you want to call it. It's just a canniness that they need to do. But it's the controlled aggression. That's what I like about it.
It's a bit of his Harry Potter reference, a bit of Slytherin coming into the Dumbledore Bielsa's house. Yeah. Right.
What I did like about it though is that Perez just got straight back up, and you don't get that in the game anymore. Where that tackle like that. Grealish, he'd probably be dying of something.
I'll be curious to see how happy you are with those dark arts when they come at Everton on Wednesday night, Popey. Okay, just very quickly then, final thoughts from you, Popey.
Yeah, I honestly, I think with the pitch being laid, if it sort of lives up to billing, it's going to suit Leeds, definitely. I think there will be a response from Everton, and I do think it could be a pretty open game and a bit of a ding-dong. So I could see it being a draw. I think Leeds going favourites, though, for me at this point. And we're just hearing, it looks like Rochdale for Conor Shaughnessy. There you go.
Okay. That's breaking news.
Well, we think.
And you, Barney?
For me, I know we've been talking about no transfers in or no new signings, but hopefully we'll see how the grass performs under Bielsa ball. That'll be a good thing. But I think the fact that we've beaten, I don't want to use the old football cliche, but I am, is the fact that we've beaten Leicester, and I think that's going to give a hell of a lot of confidence coming into the game.
Radio then. So that was your match preview podcast from the Roaring Peacock. Yet another podcast. That's 63 now, I think it is. So well done if you've listened to them all. And how is the mental ward now? If you haven't, you can subscribe. And my name is Adonis. You can follow me on Twitter at the Adelites, and it's a very goodbye from me. And you can follow Barney at Barney___21 on Twitter.
Thank you. Yeah, give us a follow, Popey. You used to follow my old account.
Oh, wow.
Right, okay. Will do.
Please, I'm not shy.
Please, Mr. Popey, sir. Won't you follow me? It would make me awfully happy. And it's a very goodbye from Adam Pope.
See you later.
Come on, Leeds! On and on and on. Most of our stats come from LUFC Stats or LUFC Data on Twitter. You should probably give them a follow as they're more interesting than us. A very special thanks to Adam Warner, Barney Stewart, Cookie Ewan and Howard Metcalf, Josh Pearson, Laura, Leon and Rob, The Light Show and all our family and friends.
So many games to play, don't care what's on your mind. I should have said no.